everyone, so in today's video I am bringing you a review of not just one concealer, not two concealers, but every concealer that I own because more is more. I love to do roundup videos. I like to tackle a lot of different products in one video and kind of jam-pack them in because I just find that those videos are helpful. In today's video I'm going to be reviewing my entire concealer collection for you. I hope that you guys enjoy it, so if you do, please make sure to give this video a thumbs up, and before you go, if you find me tolerable, please make sure to subscribe as well. Let's quickly breeze over what I look for in a concealer. One, under the eyes, it can't look heavy. That is actually a really big pet peeve of mine. Being someone that has both dark circles and dry skin, I just can't deal with my concealers looking really heavy under the eyes. It tends to draw attention when I'm trying to obviously take away attention from the under eye. Number two, it also needs to look natural. Again, I don't want to draw attention to that area. I just want it to look naturally a little bit brighter, a little bit more concealed. And on the face as well, when I apply concealer to the face, I would rather the product look as natural as possible. And in the same vein, three, I also like for my concealers to look hydrating. That doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be dewy, but I do prefer a concealer that is moisturizing. Let's start off on a good note. Let's start off with like my baby. It is the Maybelline Fit Me. This has been a holy grail concealer since I found it, and I've been using it for probably 6-7 years. Honestly, I've kind of lost count. It comes in 12 different shades, which is decent for the drugstore. It's not the best, it's not the worst. You get 0.23 ounces and it retails for around $6. So this is so affordable, which is one of the reasons why I really like it. I feel like this is going to be falling this entire video, but I don't want to pull it up like this because then I look a little bit too like prairie girl. I feel like when I put it down here, I'm more like prairie hoe, which I guess is what I'm going for. So anyway, I really fell in love with this when I first tried it for a few different reasons. One, it was one of the first concealers that I tried that didn't make my under eyes look really dry while also offering some coverage. I would say that this is about a medium coverage concealer. Two, I could build it up and it wouldn't start to cake up on itself. It wouldn't look drying as I kept building it up. And I think that that's a really important thing that I look for in a concealer, because sometimes I'll apply concealer and I'll go in with the rest of my makeup and I just want a touch more pop under my eyes. Again, I do have dark circles, so sometimes I can just slightly see them peeking through. And with a concealer like this, I could apply this over powder at the end of my makeup and it wouldn't look heavy. It's just one of those concealers that is really difficult to make it look bad on the skin, in my opinion. And I think that's why so many people go back to this one. It just never exaggerates texture. It never looks heavy. It will crease if you don't set it. I think you're actually worse off if you go for a concealer that doesn't really crease, but if it does, it's nearly impossible to pat out the creases. I do like for my makeup to look natural, and this is just one of those concealers. It looks fresh, it looks dewy. This does have more of a dewy finish. The consistency is kind of liquidy with just a touch of creaminess that I think is really flattering under the eyes. The way that I apply it is I apply it under the eyes, I let it set, and then I blend it out, and I always find that I get even more coverage that way. Overall, I just think that this is one of the best, if not my favorite concealer I've ever used. So if you haven't tried it, I really highly recommend trying it, and use the technique that I told you. Apply it under the eyes, let it sit for about 30 seconds to a minute, then blend it out and see what you think. I personally think it's absolutely beautiful. Let's talk about another concealer that you guys are probably tired of me talking about. It is the Kosas Revealer concealer. And when I first tried this out, I had a little bit of a mixed feeling about it because I had tried out the shade number 2 and that was very yellow on me. But once I tried the shade 1, it's a very good shade match for me, which is very important. And I really liked it at first, and I kept using it and I kept using it. And then I started realizing like, I really love this concealer. So the Kosas Revealer concealer comes in 16 different shades. It retails for $28 and you get 0.2 ounces of product in here. One of the reasons why I really like this, and I've recommended it so many times, is that it just looks so natural under the eyes while offering even more coverage than the Maybelline Fit Me. So I'm sure you can kind of see my type. I definitely have a type. It's just one of those concealers that you can apply it under the eyes. It will give you more of a natural finish. It's way more natural, creamy. It's not too dewy. It will make the eyes look brightened. It will give you a solid medium coverage. It's buildable, it's blendable, but it sets down a little bit, which I do think is what makes the Kosas a little bit different than, say, the Maybelline Fit Me. It will go under the eyes, give you that coverage, look really natural under the eyes, and by the way, it is the concealer I have under my eyes today, but it sets down and it's just a little bit more crease resistant than something like the Maybelline Fit Me. And I do think that is because of that set down and also because the finish isn't as dewy. Again, it's more of a natural finish. It also has peptides and caffeine, and you know, a lot of brands incorporate different ingredients and say, you know, it's going to do X, Y, and Z. But I actually truly think that this does a good job at also depuffing the under eyes. I have used this when I've been pretty hungover, and I've found that it actually does a good job at kind of depuffing and making the eyes look a little bit more awake. So if you're looking for a concealer that looks natural, that's going to give you a medium coverage, great for every day, but also good if you are wearing a little bit more coverage on the skin. I just love this one. I pretty much have not put it down in the last couple of months. Like, I've used it more than my Maybelline, and that's really saying a lot because you guys already heard my spiel about this one. Next up, we're going to talk about this little corrector here. And I have mentioned this one on my channel for a very long time because it's really the only corrector product that I've ever found I actually like. It's the Tarte CC Corrector, and mine is in the shade light medium. There is only 2 shades, which really is a downfall to this product. You get 0.08 ounces for $25, which is not a lot of product, but with a corrector, you don't want to use a lot. This corrector is incredibly emollient. So a lot of potted concealers tend to be a little bit more drying or very thick. This is one of the first correctors that I tried that is really truly emollient. It has a great creaminess to it, and when it goes under the eyes, it really is hydrating, which is really great because if you are applying a corrector under the eyes to kind of cancel out any of the blues or the purples that you have going on under the eyes, it can really make the situation worse if the corrector itself makes the skin look tired, if it makes the skin look dry. This to me is the perfect corrector for dry, dark circles. It will give you quite a bit of coverage. You just need a touch. I actually find that I don't need to apply concealer over it, which I also really like. It lasts on the skin. It looks like skin, slightly more of a dewy finish. I just find if you take a finger, sort of pat it under the eyes, especially where you have like the darkest spots under the eyes, this really conceals really well, brightens the eyes. So if you're looking for a corrector, I definitely recommend this one. Next up, we have the Glossier Stretch Concealer. I get a lot of questions about what I think about this concealer, and I think it's just because it's a very unique and different product. I am a Glossier rep and I have a lot of experience with this. I actually have my old tub of the light before they did all of the new shades. I have the shade G12 and there are 12 different shades throughout the range. There actually used to be less, which was not great, and I'm glad that they did expand. There definitely is some opportunity to expand it even more, and it retails for $18. I think Glossier became popular because it embraced the sort of no makeup look that a lot of us really enjoy, and to me, this is truly a no makeup concealer. When you apply it, it will just look like you didn't do anything. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It just looks so much like skin. It comes in a pot, which again, I'm usually turned off by potted concealers because they tend to be really tacky and just heavy. This is very emollient, but it's not thick and it's incredibly dewy. Because of this, when you apply it onto the skin, it sort of just melts into the skin. It's somewhere between a sheer and a light coverage. I actually don't recommend really building this up. I think one layer is where you should stay, because with a concealer like this, if you apply too much, it's not going to keep giving you a lot of coverage. This isn't really a buildable concealer. It will just eventually look heavy, so I wouldn't recommend doing that. But if you just go in with a light layer under the eyes, and actually what I like to do is take it just with a finger and apply it in this area. I'll do a little bit on my nose and on my chin, and then I'll be out the door. This is a really great concealer for all over the face, just to quickly conceal any redness that you have, any of the darkness under the eyes, and it's just not going to look like a lot of makeup on the skin. It's a very good concealer if you're looking for something to put all over the face and not worry about some areas looking concealed and others looking not concealed. I don't think it'll be enough for some people really concealing a lot of darkness though. And personally, I just like using this when I don't really want to wear a lot of makeup. And in general, it's just really gorgeous on the actual face rather than just under the eyes. Certainly an easy product to use. Next up, we have the NYX Born to Glow Radiant Concealer. It comes in 24 different shades, which I love. You get 0.14 ounces. It retails for $9. This is certainly more of a natural finish concealer, and it is in line with the Born to Glow foundation as well. It's not very, very dewy, but it does have a radiance like they mentioned. It is more on the natural side, definitely has a sort of blurring quality to it. Weirdly enough, I actually can't figure out what shade this is. It doesn't say it on here. Oh, here it is. I have the shade Allabaster, and I'm not sure if it's this shade or if it's just the formula, but I find this to be very, very brightening under the eyes. So if you really want a very highlighted look, I have been really enjoying this. It doesn't reflect back a ton of light, but there is that sort of natural radiance about it that's very flattering. It's versatile too, because I do think that it does set down a little bit as well, so I don't feel the need to powder this. The coverage is about medium coverage, but you can't really build it up anywhere past that. I think it's actually a really great option at the drugstore, especially if I just want a little bit more of like a polished but natural look. Because the texture is more on the natural side and it does slightly airbrush, I think it's a really good option if you do want a little bit more of that like classic and polished look. Next up, we have the Radiant Cream Concealer, the Healthy Skin Concealer from Neutrogena. And I actually have seen a couple more people talk about this. I initially, you know, back when quarantine wasn't a thing, I just went into Target and was looking around for new makeup, and I came across this concealer. So you guys already know I like everything that this is describing. I mean, radiant, creamy, healthy skin, all that sounds like right up my alley, so I was really excited to try this one. It retails for $12.99. You get 0.24 ounces, and I have the shade Ivory 01 Light. And this shade is actually too light for me, which normally I would be annoyed at, but I actually like that because it means that some of you that are paler than me have a shade for you. This is actually a very liquidy concealer. It's probably one of the most liquidy concealers that, actually, no, it definitely is the most liquidy concealer that we're talking about today. So if you like a very liquidy texture, you'll probably like this. And it's also pretty thin. It's about a light to medium coverage. You can build it up a little bit, but because this is so thin, I actually think that on more of like a very dry skin day, it can slightly exaggerate some of my texture. Nothing that's really offensive, but I do think it is in part because the concealer is very thin. It does last on the skin. It will give you a light coverage, and I think some of you that like more of a liquidy and thin concealer, you know, something like the Naked Skin Concealer, I think this is really reminiscent of a product like that. But those concealers tend to not look really good under my eyes because my eyes are so dark and dry. Overall, I think it's okay. It's just not an absolute favorite. Next, we actually have a new concealer that I tried out. And let me read you the description about this concealer, because you'll probably wonder, why did you try it? So they market it as waterproof, matte, medium coverage, and just highly pigmented. And it is the Too Faced Peach Concealer, the Matte Instant Coverage Concealer. So these come in 18 different shades. I actually have 2 shades because I was trying to figure out my best shade. I have Whipped Cream and Buttercream, but I find that Buttercream works a little bit better for me, so that's the one I'll be demoing. Comes in 18 different shades. It retails for $22, and you get 0.24 ounces of product. So like I said, the description of this product, this was just never ever going to be on my radar, but one of you actually recommended this concealer to me, and you like swore that I would like it. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm very glad that I did because I think that this is a really, really pretty concealer. This is a very good concealer for coverage. If you're looking for a pretty pigmented product that you don't need a lot of, I think that this is a really good option because it will give you that medium coverage very quickly, and you don't need a lot of product. The texture of this as well is creamy, but you can feel between your fingers that it's not too matte. Actually, I think that this is more on the natural or satin side. Certainly not a flat matte. Definitely leaning more satin on my skin, and I do have dry skin. I think this product works best when you use a very thin and light layer under the eyes to really get coverage. I think this is a great product, especially if you're going for more of a medium to full coverage. You want to work with a cream product, but you don't want a really dewy looking concealer. I also really like the texture and the finish of these because it kind of flattens out the under eye. And that's another odd thing about having dry dark circles under the eyes, is I feel like sometimes we're trying to conceal the hollowness under our eyes, which is not really possible. But what really helps is if you're using more of a satin concealer, because there will be a lot less light reflecting back and you won't really be able to see that shadow as well, and in turn really brightens the under eye. Again, I would recommend using a thin layer of this. I wouldn't really build it up because it will start to crease, but just using a light and thin layer under the eyes, I'm just really surprised at how much I ended up really liking this. Oh, and it does smell vaguely of peaches. When it's under my eyes, I don't smell it anymore, so I don't really mind. So yeah, I'm really glad that I tried these, especially now in the summer when I just want something that's gonna last a little bit longer. Next, let's talk about a concealer that's been getting a little bit of hype behind it. It is the Uoma Beauty Stay Woke Concealer. It retails for $15. You get 0.17 ounces, and it comes in 20 different shades. I was a little bit nervous to try this concealer because I just felt like it was probably going to be a little bit drying on my skin, but I'm really glad that I did, because to me this is a really like middle of the road concealer that a lot of people will like. It's very reminiscent of like a NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer. It's creamy, it's slightly smoothing, it's hydrating under the eyes. It's more of a medium coverage, but it has a very skin-like finish. So if you're not a fan of a really dewy concealer, this is a really good one because it kind of like sinks into the skin and looks like skin while also offering a decent amount of coverage. Blends really well. I do think because this is more of like a skin-like finish, I need to prep my skin. If I haven't properly prepped my skin, I will notice that it does look a little bit drier than usual. But especially if you have combination skin and you're looking for a concealer you can use under the eyes that's not going to look dry, but also all over the face, I think this is a really good option for you. The founder of Uoma Beauty actually did start Pull Up for Change, which I'm sure a lot of you are following. It's a really cool sort of grassroots movement that is asking corporations and businesses to share the number of Black employees they have to hopefully get them to committing to 10% of their workforce being Black. And I feel like the movement is already getting a lot of change, and it's gotten a lot of brands talking and consumers talking. So I really love the brand for that reason. I think the concealer is really awesome. The next concealer we're talking about is the Milani Conceal and Perfect Concealer. Now, back in the day, I actually tried out the Milani Oh my god, these yappy ass dogs outside. Back in the day, and by back in the day I mean probably 3 or 4 years ago, I tried the Milani Conceal and Perfect Foundation and actually really enjoyed it. It was a lot more coverage than I was looking for in a normal foundation, but I actually really liked the way it looked on my skin, so I was interested in seeing how this concealer would look on my skin. It comes in 18 different shades, you get 0.17 ounces, and it retails for around $9. This is pretty full coverage. You can get a lot of coverage out of this concealer, and it is incredibly creamy, but it still comes in this little doe foot applicator. You can apply as you normally would, but it just has such a creaminess to it. For me, this is really good for like slightly more full coverage makeup if you have dry skin. It will crease under the eyes, but if you set it, I don't think you should have any issues. It's just a really nice concealer if you do lean more on the dry side, but you really like a lot of coverage on the skin. It is slightly thicker. Like, I don't actually recommend really building it up, but you can. Like, you will continue to get coverage as you keep building. It's pretty long wear. I like that there are so many different shades, and I really like that Milani decided to go the more hydrating route when they were coming out with more of a full coverage concealer. To me, this is also like super reminiscent of the Born This Way concealer. And lastly, we have the Hourglass Vanish concealer. I actually did an entire review on this concealer a while back. It retails for $34. You get 0.2 ounces of product, and it comes in 22 different shades. This is a very, very highly pigmented product. It's more liquidy, it's slightly thinner, but it definitely has a creaminess to it. It's actually very reminiscent of the Vanish foundation, if you're familiar with that texture, but I much prefer this formula to the Vanish foundation. Use a little bit under the eyes, especially if you want more of like an airbrushed, super flawless look under the eyes. I do need to prep my skin if I decide to use this, and I do sometimes find myself not enjoying the way that it sits under my eyes. And I think that's just because it is so full coverage and I'm just really not used to that. But I do think that there are people that will really enjoy this, and I can see why people would really like it. I love that there are so many different shades. I really like that they came out with a concealer that makes sense in combination with their other products. It really will give you a lot of coverage very quickly. I think this is definitely a great concealer for those of you that like that more airbrush finish. Okay, well, that was a lot of concealers we just talked about. If you guys did find the video helpful, before you go, please make sure to give this video a thumbs up, and I would love for you to subscribe before you go. I really appreciate you guys watching, and I will hopefully see you in my next one.